All right, guys, welcome back for part 2 or part 3. Don't know, it's the last piece I need to do to get the damage all fixed on Sophie. And what we're going to do today is replace this primary cover, which involves a few things, but hopefully this isn't going to be too bad. As far as stuff you need for this, we have the new primary cover. And I decided to go with the gloss black. Didn't really like that Defiant one. I think it was just way too much stuff. The weird thing about this is it's got this beautiful gloss black cover, but these right around where the bolts go in were real bright, shiny metal, steel, whatever, silver. I'll throw a picture up here. So what I did was I took my trusty frame paint pen and put a few coats of black to black those out, because, you know, I'm kind of doing that everywhere on the bike. We're going to need, I got 2 quarts of the heavy synthetic gear oil. This is 80W140. The reason I've got 2 of these here is because when you are doing a wet, just simply an oil change, you need 32 ounces. But when you're replacing the primary cover, it's considered a dry swap out on the oil, and you need a little more, so you need 40 ounces. So I've got 2 of those. I've got a gasket for the oil plug. We also have a filter, which will fit into the narrow primary opening, the derby area, so that we can refill the oil with that. And then as far as tools, I've got a 3/16 Allen. This will be used to take all the bolts off the primary cover. I also have a T25 Torx. This will be used to remove the derby cover. Before you say anything, I know everybody says use a T27. I'm telling you on mine, T27 is too big, can't get it seated, so we're using the T25. And then to pull the oil plug off, we're gonna use a 5/8 socket. And then we also have a 6-pack of alcohol-free Heineken, a graduated pitcher so I can measure the oil that I'm taking out. The other 2 things that I got, one is the gasket for the primary. Now, look, I know that there are people that say you don't need to replace this every time, you know, you do a cover swap or whatever, if there's nothing wrong with the gasket you have. I don't even remember how much it was. It might have been $30, $35, $40. All I know is that it's a lot cheaper to replace the gasket when you do this cover swap than it is to try to use the old one, get everything refilled, and find out you got a leak. So I got the gasket. I also got this big Harley-Davidson oil pan. You know, here's the truth be told here, I've never changed oil in a car or anything. I don't even have an oil bucket. So I went ahead and got this, primarily because it'll slide underneath the motorcycle, but I can also set the primary cover that I'm taking off the bike on top of it. And then the last thing that we have is a good friend. Hey, Volts.
Hey, how are you?
Thanks for coming over, man. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I don't know if Volts has ever done this before, but I figured, you know, if something goes wrong, I've got somebody to yell at. So let's talk through the process that we're going to go through here real quick before we get started. I've got the drain pan underneath. The first thing we're going to do is remove the derby cover. We're going to use that T25 Torx, and we're going to loosen and then remove the bolts in a star pattern. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The reason we're doing that is because that will open up the space for the air to come in as the oil drains out of the bottom. Then underneath here, right there, is the drain plug for the primary oil. That's a 5/8 socket to pull this off. We'll drain the oil out. Then we're going to loosen the bolts on the primary cover, and there is a sequence that I'll throw up here on the screen when we get to that point from the service manual that you have to take these bolts out. Thing to pay attention to is the 5 bolts on the front are much longer than the rest of the bolts on the other parts of the primary cover. So you want to make sure when you put them back in that you put the long bolts where they're supposed to go and not try to do vice versa. You'll have a problem. Then we're going to refill the oil. So let's see how this goes. Hey, before we start, the process that we're going to go through here should be the same, I believe, for all the 2018 and above Softails. The big variation on the bikes is going to be if you have stuff that's covering the primary cover. Like, I don't know, Walter, your Heritage probably has those boards probably cover down here. So you'd have to remove anything like boards or pegs or whatever to make sure you've got clear coverage here. What we're going to need to do is I'll probably have Volts hold down the kickstand out of the way whenever I get ready to pull that cover off, but that should be the only difference. So now we're going to start with taking off the derby cover. Again, star pattern 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Loosen them first before we actually take them off, and take them off in the same order. The reason we're doing that is to make sure that we maintain an even pressure on the derby cover, because if you try to go in sequence, there's a chance that you can torque that, warp it a little bit, and you won't get a good seal. We're going to try this GoPro 9. I think that, does that look like it's lined up from the back? It's basically a piece of shit from what I understand. Okay, I'll take this off.
Wasn't there supposed to be a gasket? Oh, this ring, okay?
Yeah, so the gasket here is right there. Now, normally I would say replace this gasket, but I just had the oil and everything changed and a new gasket put on 2 months ago. So I'm gonna just pull this out, and then we'll end up using the same gasket on the new primary cover, as long as this one's not messed up. Get this out of the, there we go. So yeah, so we're just going to inspect this. It's all, it looks brand new. There's no problems with that. So we'll reuse this gasket when we put the derby cover on. Huh?
Does it have a side?
No. Nope, it's no side. Okay. So we'll set that away. And then before we go any further, before we start draining, what I'm going to do, can you grab that flashlight up there, that big flashlight? Right in front of you.
Oh,
yeah. I want to make sure that I've got the right oil level when I refill this. Can you put a light down there? Here we go. So the oil should actually come up to the bottom of the clutch plate. I don't know if you can see that there. I'm just going to use the screwdriver to go down a little bit to see. Up, it's right there. So the top of the oil is right at the bottom of the clutch plates. That's where it should be whenever we do a refill. So now we're going to drain the oil, and we're going to use the 5/8 inch socket on this plug right here. You know what? That's
You want me to hold that from the other side?
let's see. Might need you to. Let's see. Oh, there we go. See if that's loose enough. If there's a washer or anything there. Here we go.
That's really black.
Yeah. All right, so once you get the plug off, we want to clean off the plug, and we want to inspect the end right here. And what we're doing is we're looking to see if there's any flecks of metal. I didn't know until I was researching how to do this. There's actually a magnet right here on the end of the oil plug. And it attracts any metallic impurities that might be floating around in the primary. So that looks clean. I don't see anything there. So we'll just clean this off before we put it back on. And Walter actually asked a good question when we started. I have not warmed up the bike. And the reason I haven't warmed up the bike is because if you do a cold drain, you'll get more oil out of the primary. If you've been riding the bike and then you try to change the primary oil, there's a lot of oil that's just spewed all around the primary that's either going to take forever to come out or it's just not going to come out. So this is a cold oil change, not a warm one. So we're gonna let this drain, and I'm gonna go order pizza. What kind of pizza you guys want? Okay, the oil's drained out. That went pretty quickly. If all we were doing was an oil change right here, I would go ahead and dump the oil that I took out into the graduated pitcher to measure how much I took out to make sure that I'm putting at least the same amount in. But the service manual says because we're doing a dry change, which means this cover's coming off and all that oil that's on the inside of this cover won't drain out, then we need to put 40 ounces back in. So what we're gonna do is take this off, and then when we do the refill, I'll put a quart in, take a measurement, see where that oil level is in relation to the bottom of the clutch plate, and then we'll keep going until we hit 40 or it gets to the right place. Now the thing to keep in mind is there's a sequence that we have to use in loosening and taking off these bolts, and that's right here. I'll throw the image up on the screen so you can see it better than that. But we're gonna go ahead and go through that process. Right, so we're gonna use a 3/16 hex, and we're gonna start this process in the number 1 position on that chart. Where's that, Walter? Right there?
I think so, yeah.
Which is right here on that bolt, and then we're just gonna work around. The first time we're just gonna loosen. I'm not gonna actually take the bolts out. $11. Can you get that one? Oh, there it goes. 11. Oh, that's funny. And then we're just gonna go 12. Can you get that one, Walter? 12 and 13. And I'm gonna get my spinner to get these off. My spinner. Whee! Yeah, so let's make it a little bit easier to get these bolts out. I got a tip on this from Chris over at Ride and Dad. I saw him using one of these and was like, hey dude, what the hell was that? Went to Amazon and got myself one. So we're gonna start with 1, which is right here. Now we're just gonna pull them out. In case you're wondering, these bolts are black. They're not like yours if you have the stock, because I got the black bolt kit. And these have little washer on there, so make sure you don't get those separated. This is the short one. So there's 5, and this is the first long one. So this one, this one, this one, and this one will be the long ones.
Same thing. This thing seems to be holding the
Yeah.
club right now.
Okay. So that's all the bolts. You're gonna move that ratchet. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the cover off and we're gonna set it this way. Set it where the wet side is down on the end. Can you pull that out a little bit? Okay. Ready?
Yeah, is it heavy?
I don't know, it shouldn't be heavy. There we go. Whoa, look at that oil. Look at that oil. Okay, so now we're gonna set it down this way. We need to pull that out a little further. Can't, because we can't because of the oil coming out, so just do it like this. Oh, there we go. So we just set that down like that.
It should look like that.
Check that out.
You should definitely just ride like that.
Check that out.
It's badass.
Should put like a clear one on here, man. Where the hell's the gasket? Gasket, oh look, yeah, the gasket's all stuck to that, so we're not gonna use that gasket anyway. We got a new one. Yeah, so we're gonna let the rest of the oil drain out of the bike, and then maybe grab a little bit of pizza, and then we'll reverse the process, put the new one on. Before we go any further, I do want to mention that when we turned the old primary cover over, we saw this piece. This was not on the new one that I was replacing it with. The new one did not come with any instructions, and I found no reference to this piece in the service manual. So I asked one of the techs at the dealership, and he told me that this piece was actually part of the kit that goes in place when you switch to mid controls. He didn't know why it was here. I don't know why it's here, but I went ahead and took it off this with the 3/16 Allen and put it on the new one just so it's there. So I don't know if yours is going to have this there or not, but it doesn't hurt anything to go ahead and reinstall it. Now we're ready to go ahead and put the new primary cover on. Everything's all drained out at this point. Make sure that you've removed the old gasket if it did not come off with the old cover. We'll want to put the new gasket on first. And when we do that, you want to look for a couple of dowels that are right here on the primary. On the new gasket, you'll see that there are holes that align with those two dowels. This will let you go ahead and put that gasket on and help keep it in place and make sure that all the holes are aligned before you put the new cover on. With the new gasket on, we're ready to go ahead and put the new primary cover in place. And we're going to take a couple of bolts, put them in to kind of hold it in place so it doesn't fall off. The next step is to go ahead and thread all the bolts back into place, snug them down just a little bit, but we want to go in the sequence that we went in when we took them off. We have all of the bolts snugged down in the sequence, back and forth sequence that I put up on the screen. So now what we need to do is go in and torque these down. And the manual calls for a torque spec of 144 to 156 inch-pounds. So we're going to do this at 150. And again, we need to torque these in the same sequence. I'll throw that up again here just in case you need it. All right, so we needed to use an extension to be able to get up under here to torque these.
Something like that.
Yeah.
All right. That's all.
All right, so that's all torqued down. Thank you, Walter. So now the next thing that we need to do is to, I'm going to go ahead and put the gasket back in here. And then when we get the oil, we'll rub a little oil around there too. That's still wet. So we're going to put that in place. And again, guys, if you're just, if you're changing the oil and you've had your ring in there for a while, that gasket in there for a while, you probably just want to replace it. But this one's only 2 months old, so, and it's in really good shape. So I'm just reusing it. And then once we get the oil, I'll put a little oil around there to help that seal up. So everything's torqued. We've got that in place. Yeah, we got to put the old goober plug back in. All right, guys, so with the drain plug, we want to go to what? What's the torque value?
14 to 21 foot-pounds.
14 to 21 foot-pounds. So we're going to torque that bad boy down. There you go. That's it. Now to fill this back up with oil, we're going to take this little handy-dandy Dubahobber here. And as we bend that in place, there we go. So that's in place, so now we can just pour the oil here directly into the primary. You guys don't need to see us pour oil in, right? We're gonna pour the oil and then we'll be back. Okay guys, we put the oil in. Can you get that light down here a little bit, Walter? And we put 40 ounces of oil in, and I'm just gonna stick the little screwdriver down there to where I can see the very top of the oil level, and it is right at the bottom of the clutch plate, which is where we were when we started. So 40 ounces, that's what you need on a dry changeout. We're good. So now the next step is we're going to put the derby cover back on. And heck, we should be good to go at that point. Okay, guys, before I put this on, obviously in my case, you can tell which way's up because I've got the 114 on it. If you don't have a 114 or a writing or some type of graphic, little tip, if you turn it around and look on the inside, the HD is always at the top. So this is your #1 position, this hole here. So we're gonna turn this around, put that on, and then I've got thread locker on these, and I'm gonna go in the same star pattern that I went in when I took it off, but at this point, all I'm gonna do is just screw these in place. Am I lined up? All right, I'm just gonna hand tighten these for now, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna torque these down. And Walter, what was the torque spec on that?
It says 25 to 35 inch-pounds.
25 to 35 inch-pounds. And again, star pattern, never go around in sequence. That's it.
Yep. Sometimes it doesn't click.
Yeah. All right. We are done. I think that looks pretty nice. What do you think?
Looks nice, yeah.
All right. Hey guys, it's time to get cleaned up. I'll clean all this stuff up, and then it's getting dark outside, so I'm gonna start the motorcycle, make sure everything's running okay and I'm not spewing oil anywhere, and then I'll take some photos tomorrow morning, let you know what it looks like. But that's the process. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to leave a comment down below. As long as I post this video, everything worked out okay. If I don't post this video, you never know anyway. Thanks a lot, Volts.
You're welcome.
See you tomorrow. We should hire somebody to come in and clean this stuff up, man. And there we have it, new primary cover's on. We're just outside trying to get Sophie cleaned up a little bit. She's still had a lot of dirt on her from that trip from West Virginia. Really like the way that primary cover looks. I think it looks pretty sweet. Let me know what you guys think down below. All right. Well, this was a long video, wasn't it? Thanks for hanging in here. Take care. Bye. Peace.